KGNU FM 88.5 Boulder, KGNU 1390 Denver. Stay tuned for Metro.
Support comes from the Crescent Grange in Broomfield, located at 7901 West 120th Avenue, presenting a lecture on the war in Ukraine, featuring a Russia security specialist on Tuesday, March 7 at 6:30 p.m. More information can be found on the calendar of events at crescentgrange.org.
Support comes from the Arts Hub, a cultural arts center offering arts education programming for all ages in Lafayette, Colorado. Now registering for summer camps for children ages 3 through 16 in theater, dance, music, and art. Registration information can be found at artshub.org/programs.
Welcome to Metro, KGNU's independently produced program focusing on the community, civil rights, wellness, and other social issues. I'm your host, January Jones. For today's episode, I took a field trip to El Sistema. El Sistema is a nonprofit music education program that provides free string instruments and music lessons to youth ages 3 to 18. At their offices right next to Denver's Curtis Park, I spoke with their executive director, Dr. Ingrid Larragoity-Martin, an experienced conductor and music educator who took over the role last year. Hello, Ingrid.
Hi, how are you doing, January?
I'm good. Thank you for welcoming me to your space today.
Thank you for coming. I love when people come and I love giving a tour. Even if the building is empty, it kind of carries a spirit about what we do here and what we're about and what the kids fill it in with. It's really exciting.
Yes, we're sitting in one of the classrooms, and there are tiny little chairs, and there are music notes and notations really close to the floor so these kids can see. So it really does have an impact.
Yeah, well, we start at pre-K. We start 3 and 4 years old, and we go all the way to 18. So a lot of the little chairs and the lower board and stuff, and actually the instruments behind you, there's quarter size, 3/4 size cellos. It's all so that the student feels like they're capable of achieving. So we've put a lot of thought process into how this building feels for the students, even if they're 4 years old. You know, sometimes things are really big for them and it seems immense, and we want them to feel comfortable.
So tell me more about the program here.
Absolutely. So El Sistema Colorado started 11 years ago, and it's really excited. We just celebrated an anniversary, and it's a huge landmark, especially thinking about the pandemic closing anything music. So we were excited to celebrate that and move into our own 501c3 this year, which is exciting. Historically, El Sistema comes from Venezuela. It started in 1975 by Jose Abreu, who had noticed the great gang violence and youth violence that was in Venezuela in his town. And he started to literally take weapons away from children and give them instruments, and they would practice right there in the streets for 3 years. They didn't have a building, and then finally got government support and all sorts of things, and it became this huge movement of social justice through classical music and empowering and giving voice to young people in a positive way with positive connections, and leading them to, a lot of them, to careers. I mean, Gustavo Dudamel is the big name, right? LA Phil, going to New York Phil now, who's a major conductor who was raised in El Sistema, Venezuela. So not every kid comes through that, but there are quite a few really phenomenal professional musicians that have come through those systems all around the world. And somewhere in the 80s and 90s, it really became popular. And there are programs of El Sistema everywhere. So this is fashioned after the core values of the original El Sistema, which is social justice and no barriers in music. And that's a big statement for us. And every El Sistema looks slightly different because it's important to reflect the demographic and the socioeconomic status of your community so that they can also have that opportunity and have it in a positive way that allows them to become who they really should be and value who they are and get a seat at the table.
So for students coming here, how do you dismantle barriers for music education?
It's different for every kid, right? But the overall program vision is that we have a lot of surveys for the kids, even the 4-year-olds. We have surveys for the parents, and we do it every semester. And it's not just benchmarks of musical notation and posture and playing, but also how do you feel? Do you have a connection with your teacher? What are you looking for when you come in? How do you feel when you walk into the building? And there's a lot of positive affirmation and moments for these students to learn. A big part of our curriculum is social emotional learning, and that has agency and an identity that are big pillars for social emotional learning. We put it specifically to music education, and the ways that we can do that is by BIPOC composers that look like them, celebrating music that is from their demographic. And we have a really high Hispanic Latinx demographic here. We have a lot of Venezuelan students, which is really cute, that were in the Venezuelan system and then their parents moved to Colorado. We have one student whose parents came from Venezuela to South Carolina. We're in El Sistema, Venezuela, El Sistema, South Carolina, and now we're at El Sistema in Denver. And it's really amazing, speaks to the value of the program internationally, that's the first thing that the parents look for and the kids look for is, oh, is there an El Sistema in this place so that my child can continue? And I think that speaks volumes for the program everywhere and what we're really about, and that's the beauty of what we do. But the BIPOC composers are really important. In this wall, we have Florence Price, Carlos Chavez, Lilo Akalani, Jesse Montgomery, Carlos Simon, people who are not Beethoven and Mozart and Wagner. And so it's important for these kids to be connected to that. Another important strategy is connecting them to live musicians that look like them. And Colorado kind of holds this difficulty in its population and demographic, and really it's a problem with classical music in itself. It's a primarily white male dominated business, so we are trying to demystify that and bring in musicians and collaborators and partners that reflect their demographic, and they can see themselves and hear themselves through these collaborations. One of the big ones we're working on this semester is the Colorado Mambo Orchestra with Raul Murciano, and he's coming in with one of his musicians every couple of weeks into every class and introducing mambo and conga and guaracho and all these different rhythms and styles of music that they hear when they go home, and that is something that is very connected to them. And our concert, it's going to be this culmination for the whole semester of our students performing a legit classical piece, let's say Winter by Vivaldi, and then Raul arranges Winter Vivaldi with salsa, and then the next piece is going to be a pure salsa piece. So we're educating our families that it's okay to go to these symphonies. There's music that they can relate to, and that the medium of a viola is not just for Beethoven. And I just repeat, I love Beethoven, but it's they can hear it in their genre, they can hear it in their discipline, and that they can cross, right? So that kind of impactful partnership is what we're looking for our students. And I think that's one of the first hurdles for our kids, is to see that their music has value and that it is part of the vein and the fiber of this country and the world, right? And for them to be able to see it and to look forward to playing it on the same stage as they're playing Vivaldi.
Well, to unpack that a little bit, so there's lots of components that's going into how you are designing the curriculum here. What have you learned? What has this organization learned about how to do that based on different learning styles that children have?
Differentiation is always difficult, right? And we're not just serving a community. We're serving quite a different zip codes from Denver and even beyond Denver. There are some parents that drive down here who used to live here and have moved out of the area because gentrification, right? And so they drive down here. And so we have about 10 or 12 different zip codes that we serve, and we found out just recently in our last program snapshot that you can find on our website that big portion of our students come walking here, which is great. It means it's a community school, right? But it's still a classroom that we're doing by level of playing, performance, years playing, by age group. So they don't necessarily know each other when the children come in here. And so it's a big learning curve for us on a daily basis and our teaching artists to see what are the needs, what are the learning styles, what are the languages. It was a big deal for us to have more bilingual teachers and more bilingual staff, and that's been achieved this year. So that's been really great, and that helps with the connection with the community and the parents so that we can talk to them and they feel part of the communication and part of contributing to the program in some way, shape, or form. So that's one thing, but we are constantly doing evaluations of our teaching artists and ourselves and our students so that we know, okay, well, this person needs to learn kinesthetically. So we make sure that every time this child comes in, that we're pulling them out for 10 or 15 minutes and get one-on-one with another teaching artist so that they can feel that connection and learn and then come back to the classroom. There's a couple of kids that need more extra help, so we give them private lessons on Fridays so that they can come for a boost. And so that's kind of how we deal with it. We don't have IEPs like schools. We don't want to label students. We don't want to do the tracking, but we are aware that everybody does learn different. It doesn't have to be a deficit. It could be, they're just way advanced or they're more interested or it speaks to them more. And we just want to make sure that we're constantly looking at a combination that works for those kids. And if they're more advanced, we move them to another class. And that's the freedom of doing what we do, is that we could really adapt what we do to that student. And so everybody is getting a dose of what they really need to be successful. And that's unique to what we do. And being able to change on a dime. Said, okay, this isn't working. You have your weekly meetings with your staff, with your faculty, and hey, we really need help with this. Great. By the next time they're in that classroom, they have that aid.
So tell me about your teacher artists. Tell me about volunteers, if you take
Absolutely.
volunteers.
Absolutely.
And then also any partnerships, because it seems like you're inviting a lot of different people into this space, all united around this same passion.
Absolutely. I think in the last 10 years, and specifically the last 5 years, people have become woke or aware, I hate that word, that there are problems, right? And it's become plain. Now it's in the surface and we know that it's there. And so a lot of musicians, a lot of artists want to help, a lot of community members want to help. And so I'll talk about partners first off. Colorado Symphony, Denver Young Artist Orchestra, Sphere Ensemble, which is phenomenal. Their Evalis Quartet, and there's just so many great partners. The Dahlias, which is an all-female mariachi group. The kids got to play with them at a concert in December and got to meet that. And how empowering is that for females to see, and the young women in our program to see that, because mariachi is usually not that, So it's knocking down those barriers visually, audibly, and in their face, right? So these partners that we work with have been fantastic. The volunteers that we have are a lot of parent volunteers, a lot of community volunteers that want to come in. For the little kids, we don't give them violins, as you might imagine, when they walk in the door. So we make paper mache violins, and it takes a lot of hours to create 200 paper violins every year. But we do it, and thanks to the volunteers that come in and sit here and paint and cut and paper mache, wait for it to dry, and it's a whole big process. And actually, another partner that's new is MSU, right down the street from us, who is helping us in printing some 3D printed violins, and we've been meeting together to talk about it so we don't have to make paper mache ones. But it's bringing a collaboration that's really unique, right? It's that community outreach portion that really has an impact, because what they create is really going to help our students. And for those students that are creating that and learning about it, they're not just making something for a class to get a grade or to learn math or engineering. They're actually making it, and then they're bringing it here and seeing what it does and seeing the impact that it has for our students and the learning. So there's a relationship there, and I think that relationship and connectivity within Denver and larger as we continue to grow is really meaningful, because people see their actions come through all the way, and that's a really important aspect of what we do here as well.
Well, that's creating meaningful partnerships that really have benefits on both sides, because in the nonprofit world, just see people needing things, especially if you're a group that focuses on diversity. People must reach out to you quite a bit to help them learn more about how to incorporate that into what they're doing.
I think with anything else, it's a learning process, right? And this is so relatively new to understand what DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, really means, and how to change something that, it's called systematic racism for a reason. It is something that has been built for eons. So it's going to take a really long time to break not just the system itself and the policies, but to actionize them and to make them what they need to be so that everybody feels welcome, right? So yeah, a lot of times we find that some of the partnerships, they're authentic, I believe, in their asking of, hey, can we have El Sistema play here? Or can we bring, this is what we get most of the time, can our group come and perform for your class? And yes, you know what? That's fantastic. Our students should be listening to high level, professional, varied ensembles and have them here. But that's not the impact that people believe that it is, right? So it's being able to develop and work with the partners in a meaningful way and saying, okay, well, how can we break this down so that they can see the relevancy in when they're rehearsed and the discipline that it takes to get there? And what questions can you ask? And can you sit in the ensemble with their music and show them how you would work on it, and then play it and perform with them and learn who they are, learn their names? Oh my gosh, learn their names. There's so many people that want to come and perform and cannot tell you a name of a student or a child that goes to the school. And then they expect them to be inspired by what they perform. Yes, music inspirational. I'm a conductor, a musician, I love it. But that's not everybody, and not every child should play an instrument just because they're going to be a professional. You know, it's a positive artistic form that everybody should enjoy. Everybody should have access to music at a high level, at any level that they want to have it at. And it's not our job to convince them of a genre. It's our job to make it available to them. And I think that's important for people who go out to perform for students and get that DEI check that becomes performative, right? And I'm not saying that's everybody, but I think that's their first step. Like, that's low-hanging fruit. Oh yeah, we have to do DEI and outreach. Well, we can target these groups, and then we're playing for this demographic, and we did it. And then they report on it. And really, did you have an impact? Did you change? Maybe one out of all of those.
Well, this is a larger problem, an issue within the classical music community, right?
I think it's within all the communities. Actually, you know, museums, I think everybody's going through it because we're all trying to learn together, hopefully, and honestly and authentically trying to create positive pathways that lead to something. So one of our big strategies is connecting to Colorado Symphony this year. And so our first impact was their Frozen concert, and we had a bunch of tickets, and I think 45 of our young kids went because they were learning one of the songs from Frozen, right? And so they were so excited, they dressed up and they went to that. So these kids' first professional orchestral concert wasn't Beethoven, was Frozen. Were they excited? Were they talking about it? Did they come back? Yes, on fire, because they saw the relevancy. Then the next step was an open rehearsal in January where they got to talk to the conductor, Peter Anja, and got to see classical music, but Jesse Montgomery was a big part of that, who's a BIPOC composer and phenomenal. So we learned about Jesse Montgomery before we went there. We learned a little bit about the melodic information. And so we're and our parents got to go. So that was the next step. Now the next time is March 5th. We're performing a pre-concert with Nathaniel Rateliff and the Colorado Symphony. So now when the kids go, now they're performing there. So there's all these steps to make it something. So by the end of the year, it's not, oh, Colorado Symphony. It's their symphony. It's their experience in the hall, in the place. Plus the parents learn that this is a space for them. So that's like a good example of that, I think, of how to at least start making impactful connections with partners and outside communities, because it is difficult. You know, you might love art and you might love visual art. You go to a museum and you love it. And the next person might not have any connection to it. So how do we teach it?
Well, let's talk about who is teaching and why that is so fundamental to making this program work.
Well, I think more important than the musical love and passion that the teaching artists have and the staff have here, the admin, is the love of access, the love of children, the willingness to give. With any nonprofit, we all know it's generally hard on sleeve kind of a deal, and this becomes hard on sleeve with a passion because we're all musicians, and so we know really the value of what we're sharing with these students. And when we come at them with differentiation, with, you know, culturally relevant education, with all the acronyms, all the things, really in our hearts is we love kids and we love music and we want them to experience it at whatever level they want to. Our teaching artists are phenomenal. They're all part, either getting their masters, going to DU, CU, all the universities. They have professional orchestras that they sub with, that they play with, sphere ensemble, they're composers or arrangers. So we have a really deep well of really fantastic performers, active performers, which I think is very important. It keeps them on the cusp of what's happening. And also some teachers and educators that have had a long time of, especially our early childhood education, These are phenomenal. I invite anybody to come watch these phenomenal teachers with the 3 to 5-year-olds, which I think is like miraculous because they're only taught with high school and college. I can't imagine. But I go and I like take pictures and like participate because I enjoy the age group, but I can't teach them. And they're fantastic. To see them offer music in such a passionate and beautiful way and social emotional learning at the same time, where these students are learning to find their voice and their space and to belong and agency and all those words that people find so difficult to embed in their lessons and in their content. These people do it seamlessly, and that's really the beauty. We have students that have been here for 8 years. They've grown up in El Sistema. There are parents that drive from all over the place so that their kids make it to this program, and it's not just because they're playing violin for free, and we know it's because of their relationship with their teachers. They know that it's because they know we care, and we call them and we celebrate with them, and sometimes we mourn with them, and we develop together. And I think that's the beauty of what is happening with our teaching artists.
So what do you say to people who are like, music is just music. It is not important versus, science or technology, and that there's better ways to spend your money or to spend your time?
Well, that's a whole other day, I think, or lifetime. I would pose to them to not hear any sound for a week and see how they feel. Don't watch TV. Don't watch a commercial. Don't turn on your radio. Don't go into a grocery store, dentist office. Just live in silence for a good week and see what that does to your psyche, right? And beyond that, the beauty of music is, people always say music is a universal language. And I actually hate that term philosophically because it would be the most ambiguous language that exists, right? We don't all feel the same when we hear music. You hate and love different things, and we have different connections and cultural developments that develops our tastes, right? So I like to say that music is unique for everybody, and it's a form of expression that's gorgeous. And unfortunately, the time that we live in, we're mostly consumers of it. We're not producers of it. And I think that is part of the mental health issue. One of the part of the mental health issues is that we don't have an outlet for which to express ourselves in a meaningful way, in an artistic way. And if we think back even 100 years ago, right? People played piano, people sang, people got together to make music. It was a thing. And now it's become apart. It's only those people that get schooled, only those people that are on American Idol, only the special people get to do that. And I'll purchase and I'll participate by watching, but I don't do. And we want to get back to everybody feeling that freedom and that beauty.
Well, expression is critical however you're going to do it, whether you're going to sing along to the song or you're going to try to play it. And so I would imagine in your situation here, doing music education, you have to make a funding argument, right? And really convince people that this is important. And as you discussed before, you have these impact pillars that are going way beyond music.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing with music is that it teaches you so much within it. If anybody's tried to learn how to play an instrument or sing or make music in any way, shape, or form, there's a huge skill, years of skills that has to go in before you really start enjoying the sounds you make. You want to punish a friend, give that 5-year-old trumpet and say, here, Merry Christmas, and then leave the house, right? Or a drum set. That's always my favorite gift, right? Is give somebody a drum set, their first kit. You drive that parent crazy for a long time, right? But boy, there isn't a child that doesn't get an instrument that immediately starts playing with it. There isn't an animal that doesn't respond to sound, right? So I think with the funding aspect of it, I almost hate to say, yes, there's so many byproducts that come through music. Discipline, conflict resolution, ensemble. Who isn't on a team somewhere in their job, in school, has to work on some project together with somebody. And it's a difficult process. And those people who have had orchestra, band, choir, whatever, voice lessons, understands what that feels like, because they've had to do it all along, and the give and take and the importance, they call it nucleo, which is, nucleus, but really it's ensembles. Our ensemble rehearsals are super important for our students to know what that means, to collaborate, when to listen, when to speak, how to contribute, how to be part of a group, how to present, how to enter a room, there's so much. Yes, It's important to fund us so that our kids understand these characteristic traits. But more importantly, it's important to fund us so that our students have a voice. And I think that's really where everything lies, and especially the students of our demographic, that, to become a professional musician takes thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of lessons, of equipment, of instruments, of driving, of opportunity. And that opportunity is a really small window for generally white males, right? And it's opening up a little bit. Everybody's like, oh, the job's done. We have Marin Alsop. We have Natalie Stutzman. Okay, we've got a female conductor. We're good. Well, it's 2023 and it's one out of I don't know how many, right? So obviously the work has just begun, so that our students can come and if they want to do this, they can. And you go right now and try to get an hour cello lesson. It's going to cost you $65 at least an hour, and that's a week. And then purchase a cello, and then the strings, and then do you have the time to drive a kid to and fro? And it's a lot that goes into it. So if your family can afford it, if it's something that can't be prioritized because of funding or because of access or because we're in Denver and not every elementary school has music education, that's a crime. It's a crime that in the state of Colorado, music education is not in every school. Even though we could all list the positive things that music is, somehow this state has turned a blind eye to the importance of that. So there's in Denver alone, there's 55 music nonprofits. So is there a need? Yeah, obviously people want it. Why isn't it in a public school, right? So even that showing the lack of access that there is. And I'm sure there's all sorts of priorities, and we could talk about the education system for years, but really, there is money for it. It's just whether or not we have a community that's going to stand up for it. And I mean the state of Colorado.
And parents, too, knowing to ask for it. So participating in school boards, elections, going to meetings. I remember growing up, my music teachers were always the most interesting person at school, hands down.
That's good. Interesting good.
It was interesting good. They had a huge impact on me, you know what I mean? And they were really coming at you from a different perspective, than all your other classes were throughout your education. So filling that gap and enhancing it and giving those opportunities for kids to kind of come into them true selves, it's amazing what you guys are accomplishing over here. So tell me about what's going on for you right now. Let's kind of wrap up, but tell me if you have events, how people can reach out, get involved if they're interested.
Yeah, so we have this great website, elsistemacolorado.org. And you can go on there and find everything, our history, program snapshots. But we also have a volunteer page where you can just sign up right there and volunteer and come in and kind of take a tour. We have a whole process for that. We're running a love campaign for the month of February for monthly donors. We have a lot of really great donors that give once a year, and we're trying to build our monthly numbers so that even if it's $5 a month, that would be great to see. And we have our first, which is incredible to say, gala coming up April 20th here at the Savoy, just down a few blocks from this building. And that's going to be a huge thing for us to start having a dedicated day for fundraising for El Sistema. It's open to the public. It's $125 a ticket. And we kind of took a different route for a gala where once you buy your ticket, you can choose an instrument that you want to learn for 30 minutes. And our teaching artists will take you through a typical first day lesson of 30 minutes. Like you're not going to come out being Paganini, but you can come in and kind of get a feel for what it feels like for the kids. And then, of course, there's food and drinks, a silent auction. The Colorado Mambo Orchestra will be performing, so you can get your dancing shoes on. We actually hired a dance teacher to be there, so you can learn some mambo and salsa, so you don't have to be scared. It's going to be a really fun night. We themed it Art Deco because the Savoy has that feel already. It's a great space. And we're hoping to get lots of people there willing to donate and give of their time and learn about our mission and see our kids perform. We're performing March 5th with Nathaniel Rateliff and the Colorado Symphony, and that's a huge deal. But if you don't have tickets for that, I'm afraid that ship has sailed. And then our last concert, which is in May 18th, is going to be great. Our students will be working with a school in Broomfield, and we're playing together with the Colorado Mambo Orchestra, so that's going to be a really good time. But I invite you to visit our website, elsistemacolorado.org. sistemacolorado.org. There's contact us. You can join our newsletter so you could just get information. I promise you we don't hound you, but just getting the newsletter information. If you feel that you can give, if you feel that you want to find out more, this is a great way to do it.
Well, wonderful. Thanks so much for inviting me into this space and taking the time today.
Thank you. This has been really fun, and I hope that the community out there starts to come by and realize this little building by Curtis Park is for you.
You've been listening to Metro, produced from KGNU Studios at the Buell Media Center in Denver. I'm January Jones. Thanks for listening.